Thank you so much. And we've already, some of us, found time to meet earlier. And welcome all to the panel. Thank you, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, for taking out time and being here. Also, I've been told by the Hurun team that, if I ever want to do this again, we are on a strict timeline. So we'll straight jump to the agenda here. The topic of this panel is, rethinking partnerships, corporate communities, and the new era of co-creation. Why we all are here today is to understand, the growing importance of CSR and how, with the common agenda and objective that we are here for, how we can contribute more towards it in a more constructive way. Just to throw a few numbers here, the kind of funds and the resources that are available through CSR every year are growing significantly. So as previously Anas rightly mentioned, the more wealth we create as an economy, the more we have to give back to the society. So, some of the numbers are for 23, the total CSR, including listed and unlisted companies, was close to 30,000 crores. This number is increasing, at a CAGR of around 14-15% every year. So that's the kind of, funds that one is talking about. To open the conversation, one of the questions that I would, put forth to the panel, and it's open for, all of you to answer and, weigh in and give in your thoughts here, is that India is one of the few countries amongst the world where CSR is a mandate, right? A lot of countries do not have this as a mandate. It's part of the Companies Act in our country. What I would like your thoughts on is that how do you view this mandate as a catalyst for systemic change, or do you think this is just a checkbox exercise? What has this meant for the quality and the intent of CSR work and the experience? So, since you come from the business side, I think it will be great to hear your thoughts on it.
To answer your question, that CSR legislation is in India is maybe a catalyst for change, or it's just a checkbox exercise. I can say that it can be seen as a both way. It is a catalyst for change, systematic change for some companies, and for some companies it's just a tick box exercise. It largely depends on the companies. So how the companies are approaching it. Some companies are using this opportunity as a responsibility to making a meaningful change, and some companies are doing for the sake of doing as a compliance purpose. So I have seen many companies who don't even have a CSR department. If you see, many companies have all the department like HR department, CEO, CXOs, and then head of HR, head of finance. But many companies don't even have a single person of CSR. If companies are spending, corporates spending so much of money on CSR, how they are measuring the impact of the CSR, how the money is being used in a proper way, how it's the measurement is not there. So it's, I should say, it's on the bottom of the pyramid of most of the corporate. But and if I personally take care of the CSR of mankind, that is Kind Care Foundation. When I go in the field, I go on weekends once in 4 months. So people ask me, being a CEO of the company, how do you get time to go in the field? So they have never asked me, how do you get the time to go in the office every day? How do you get time to go in the manufacturing plant? And how do you get time to attend a board meeting? But for CSR, people ask me. So the deeper question we need to ask is, are we really making an impact in the society? Yes, this has what, however, overall the mandate has, what I should say, that mandate has created an awareness among all the companies that yes, CSR is a good thing, and then definitely we want to do something better for the society. But I should say it's a mixed response. Companies' mindset has to change. Mindset has to change. Like Anatha said in the beginning, things are improving. India is moving towards that direction, towards the western part of the world, but still long way to go.
Thank you, Sheetal, for that response. I think you've hit the nail on the head. As you rightly mentioned, the behavior right now is a mixed bag. But I think, most of the people in this room and like people like yourself who, in spite of being on the business side, take out time and invest time, money, and energy yourself to take care of the CSRs of the company. I think these are the kind of examples that we want more in the ecosystem, and that will help change. As you said, we are still hopeful. We're moving towards the right direction, but yes, any change takes time, I believe. So let's be hopeful, and hopefully, with examples set by people like yourself and others in the room, we will see this percentage increase over time. So yeah.
Thank you for having me here. I think a slightly different perspective from what Sheetal said. I think one is that it's unlocked money, right? And we all here in the room know how difficult it is to unlock funding for social impact from any stakeholder group. So I think as much as that is concerned, and you just said 30,000 crores, that's no small amount. So I think that's fantastic to see. In fact, I think Sheetal is an anomaly where he's looking at CSR himself, I think. I think from our perspective, we see many companies, ourselves included, where sometimes CSR becomes too exclusive, right? And it is not actually integrated into business, as I think Faisal said earlier. And so our attempt is, how do you make it part of your business model, part of your thinking? How do you get on more CEOs, CHROs, R&D folks, everyone to think social impact and sustainability? And I think that's the effort that we're making.
I'll just take a minute to bring in a different stakeholder perspective. I represent the Implementing Foundation, and for us, it's been a very big opportunity. I feel that wherever you have tried and tested models of development ready with you, it's a humongous opportunity in terms of achieving the scale, reach, and a very big impact.
I think I'm a odd person out here because I'm the only one from the education sector, an active teacher still, and everybody else is from the corporate. So I'm at the receiving end for my schools and for my skilling centers. So I have just two questions actually. When a corporate does a tie-up for CSR, it does depend on who you're tying up with. Does that party just want a tick box, or are they going to get on your nerves and make you do more? I have done that. Before I got into with RJ Corp stepped in, I was with one or two companies, and I think they used to dread that I'm walking in and I'm going to demand, you've just done this much, it's not enough. You can't just sign a check and say now it's done and done with. My second question, which is a deeper question, is there were some statistics about how many billionaires and millionaires there are. And if genuine CSR work is happening, I don't think we should see children on the streets begging. I rest my case on that.
I think it's a very, very valid point.
So I think I would like to be a little bit of a devil's advocate here. The ship has sailed. I mean, it's been more than a decade that we're talking about how much CSR can make an impact, whether the 2% matters or it doesn't matter. That ship has sailed. A decade has gone by, and most of the corporates have completely understood how to regulate, how to work, whether to have departments, to have resources, and how to work on it. 30,000 crores may look like a big amount of money, but all of you here are like gigantic entrepreneurs, industrialists, would know, and the whole gamut of operations, when you're looking at industries or you're looking at your own turnovers, the government operations in a district, the kind of money that's being pumped in. Like, I think a single subsidy would cross over this kind of an amount. But what do you do with this amount? How do you spend this amount? How involved is your corporate as an entity in ensuring it creates a space for its stakeholders, an open and happy space, right from your board, which is what the Act is allowed. You have a committee, all the other 3 or 4 important committees, and then you have a CSR committee, and then everybody would be like, how does this committee get so much of importance? And today we have expanded the scope of the committee to be sustainability, to include ESG, and they are basically liable and responsible for how the company operates. So you're basically, the corporates have already been engaging in doing this for thousands or hundreds of years, like Tata's or Bajaj or whatever, but it has created a culture now to focus on how this needs to be done. My other important question is, do we really need to reinvent the wheel? The development sector was already there. This is about 100 years old. All the IRMA, IFMs, all these institutions are about 50 plus years old. Can we not capitalize on the kind of, intellectual wealth that is available for this sector to be harnessed to create and design programs that are apt? Philanthropy, we cannot alienate the families, the promoters from the contributions that we make. How aware we make them to spend. So we should be very clear about philanthropic foundations, corporate foundations as CSR implementing agencies. How do we strengthen our own foundations? Like you said, the human resources. Am I having enough corpus enough to run my own foundation? And there's nothing right or wrong or how deep I should go or how I should be spread out thin. If I'm spread out thin in my operations, I can be spread out thin. But am I doing things which will have an impact? Actually, and which will make my employees more engaged, my stakeholders more engaged, my vendors, operators, my distributors, my dealers, my investors more engaged in what I'm doing and excited about what I'm doing. And nothing can be that long term that, we will be able to completely revolve with the contribution that we do. But we can definitely create a corporate, an individual working in the corporate, leave a legacy behind for the contributions that they're doing. Thank you.
I just have a quick point to sort of summarize everyone else's point. I think at the time when the mandate came out, it was a catalyst, because otherwise what was the alternative? Wherever the funds going, they were diverted elsewhere, right? But now, because of the mandate, they were diverted towards the development sector. And like we were discussing, that did generate a lot of opportunity. And I think it got a lot of corporates' foot in the door in the development space, and how they chose to use that opportunity is really different. And it depends on their own goals, I would say. And I think the fact that some people are using it as a checkbox is also because there are organizations who prefer it that way in the development space. You find a lot of organizations who also don't want the funder that involved. Give me the money, I'll do the work. We get a lot of people who ask for that as well. And then there are other more conscious partners with whom you can co-create, in the spirit of co-creation, with whom you can co-create and work towards long-term impacts and really measuring the work that you are doing. And I think, as you were saying, that is the kind of work that really makes a difference when you do measure the impact. But I do think that 10 years ago, whenever the mandate came out, it was a catalyst, but now we are at a point where there are enough people in the space that we can start working together to make a measurable impact and make sure the next 10 years are very different than what these 10 years have been like.
I guess, points very well put by all the panelists here. I think two common themes that are coming out of this initial discussion is that, one, CSR cannot be an isolated exercise within the organization or within the company that one is talking about. It has to become a part of the mainstream businesses, has to become a way of life within the organization itself, and that is where the real impact and will start happening. I think another very, very important point made here was that, why reinvent the wheel? I think in the for-profit world, it's very well known that, if there are existing infrastructure processes already in place, that's the most efficient way to go about it. Why reinvent the wheel? I think same applies to the development sector as well, but I don't think it has been practiced very well. That bridge between the corporate sector and the social sector, that has to I think strengthen in some way. And platforms like these, I think, are one way to do it. There are multiple ways, and that initiative has to come. Extending the discussion itself, Sheetal, again coming back to you. So we understand Mankind Pharma, Kind Care Initiative have made a significant impact in the health care accessibility. Again, a natural extension of the business that you are into. Under your leadership, how does the company ensure that these CSR efforts, while you have already partially answered this question, that you yourself are out in the field, but if you would like to elaborate with a few examples as to how you've made this mainstream within the business strategy and also create sustainable community-driven impact. So, that would be great.
Since the beginning, we are very clear in mankind when we started around 3 decades ago that core of mankind is providing quality healthcare at very affordable prices and which should be accessible to all. When I used to work in the field long back, so when I used to visit in a rural area, we started from a rural area and tier 4, tier 3 towns. So I saw doctors prescribe medicine, but patient for 5 days to 3 days, but patient takes it for one day, even for one dose, and he didn't have money, and he has to go to district to purchase the medicine. So since that day, we have decided we will cut down the profit, we will cut down the cost of the medicine, and we were from rural area to metro town. Our teams are there, so kind care is extension of that. So wherever the need is there, the most underserved people are there. So our kind care initiative is going towards that direction. So if I will tell you that we have manufacturing plant around 24 5 manufacturing plants, and some are in Udaipur, Ponta Sahib, but 75% of our budget of CSR is not being spent on the manufacturing unit, because after doing a survey over there, we found there is no need. It's better to spend even a single rupees or crore of rupees in those towns like Bihar, Nawada district of Bihar, which is very backward, and where there is a need. So regarding the measurable impact of what we are doing, so being into business background, being into sales line, grown and bought up in sales, so or any process has to be a result oriented. So we see, like I will give an example, in some area we have upgraded the infrastructure of primary healthcare center, even the health and wellness clinic, to make it to the level of NSQ, National Accreditation Quality level. So last year we have started in Himachal Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh. So seeing the impact, it will take another 2 years to make it to NSQ level. But last year the patient serving per day OPD of that PSC was around 106 patients. Right now within a year it has increased to 372 patients. So impact is there. So many examples are there. Maybe one more example, like we have given around 500 units of smart classes. We got that from one our partners, implementing partners, give a fund for education. I told my CSR team not to give a fund for education, do something different. So instead of giving a smart fund for education, we have given for a long-term educational impact, donated a smart classes in 500 schools. So not only hardware part, we have trained the teachers. On a click of a button, every day our team knows what subject is being taught for how many hours in a day. So after giving a smart classes, in 6 months, the attendance of student has increased. The dropout rates of student has been cut down. So that is the impact. So without impact, what I personally feel that process should not be followed.
Thank you, Sheetal, for that. I think it's great to know that, also the fact that you have so much details about what's going on at the ground also goes on to say why it's become a way of life within your organization. If it comes from, the top, it trickles down. Also, you made a very important point about it being measurable, the impact being measurable. I think that is a very important task, and also off and on, I think the social sector at times struggles with, the way the impact should be measured. There is no standardization yet. If you look at some of the other sectors that we talk about, whether financial services or other sectors, you see a large amount of standardization in terms of reporting, in terms of the indicators and the parameters. I think that responsibility in some way is on us also, the social sector, to come along and develop certain parameters that are standardized, which are easy to comprehend. If you look at a listed company and you want to decide whether you want to invest in a company or not, you look at the financials of the company, the annual reports of the company, which are more or less standardized. I think there is a need for that in our sector as well. So thank you, Sheetal, for those insights. Extending this question again to Ms. Raju here, with a legacy rooted in Swadeshi movement and a reputation for delivering affordable vaccines globally. It kind of resonates with what just Sheetal said. Affordable healthcare provided to the underprivileged sector. Biologically has long combined national service with global impact. How is your CSR strategy expanding this legacy beyond healthcare, particularly in building institutional support for education, mental health, and sustainable livelihoods? Is what we would like to hear from you, Raju.
So biologically is basically our family's business. We do vaccines and affordable medicines. When my great-grandfather started the company 70 years ago, the goal was they wanted to make sure that people weren't dying from things that could be very easily treatable if they could afford access to those medications. That was the goal. And for 70 years as a company, we built around that goal. And 7 years ago, when the opportunity came for me to start our family's foundation, which also executes the CSR of the business, the one question that we asked ourselves was really, okay, now we're helping people survive into adulthood, right? Now, how do we ensure that that quality of life can be improved? How do we sustain and improve that quality of life? And the big question that we asked ourselves when we started this was, are we willing to give up control of our requirements in order to better serve our beneficiaries? And everything that we've done since then is just guided by that one principle. I'll give you one example in the interest of time. Something that we recently started was a skill development center in a slum about an hour and a half outside of Hyderabad. And we worked with the government to secure a building. And before we did any of this, in fact, myself and my team at the Datla Foundation, we went into the community and spent several weeks there to speak to a lot of different people to understand what their stories were and what the issues that they were having were. And we saw that, you know, there were so many women in that community who were skilled. A lot of them even spoke English, but they were not able to find employment. And, you know, or they were forced to stay home to take care of their kids, couldn't upskill themselves, and then couldn't keep up with the job market. And, you know, based on multiple conversations with them, we developed a very custom program at our skill development center that addresses retail, beauty, tailoring, IT, and QC from and other pharma skills as well. And we've partnered with multiple NGO. We're not implementing any of this ourselves. We co-created this program very specifically with other NGOs and governmental organizations like LSSTC and Good Universe Foundation. We work with them to implement their curriculum in our skill development center, and we provide all the classes for free to the members of the community. So every 3 months, 300 people graduate from our program, and these 300 people work with a vocational trainer and a career counselor during their time in the program, so that as soon as they graduate, they are already placed into jobs, or those of them who want to start their own business, we support them in starting their own business as well. And then once we started doing this, we saw that a lot of women came to us with concerns of like, who will take care of my child? So we set up a creche at the Skill Development Center with a Montessori trained teacher who then works with the children, so these mothers can spend the day upskilling themselves and just focusing on themselves, while, you know they have that confidence that their children are being taken care of well. So I think a large part of co-creating with the community and how we've extended my great-grandfather's and my grandfather's legacy is we are listening to the community, we are looking at the problems that everyone is coming to us with, without putting ourselves in the pictures, without saying, no, we are the ones who have to run this, we are the ones who need it has to be something new and different. We are working with the people who will satisfy that need, even if that's not us directly. So
I think that's a great story to hear, and honestly, you know, co-creating with communities in our experience also has been the most efficient way, because if you want to do something for someone, I think the person who you're doing it for knows the best what they want. We have our own experiences in giving that kind of, in some way, freedom to some of the NGOs that we subgranted to, saying that, okay, we'll not give you too many, you know, rules and regulations about where to spend the money. Probably we'll just tell you, you know, ABC, do not spend on this, rest, you take a call. because I think they know the best. So I think beautiful example of how co-creating with communities can create an impact, and how your program was evolving around the needs of the community, and with the program moving forward in different phases, there were different needs of the community that were taken care of. So thank you for sharing that. Pakzan, I'll come to you for the next question here. Again, everybody is aware of the long legacy of Godrej Industries, over 125 years in championing social responsibility, with initiatives spanning skill development, public health, and environment sustainability. Your programs have collectively impacted over 5.4 lakh individuals trained through various programs. Now, does Godrej ensure that these efforts are not only impactful but are also aligned with the evolving needs of the communities? On similar lines, we would like to understand, how Godrej has managed its programs, since the legacy that you have is longer than, almost everyone, not almost, every one of us sitting here, even before any one of us was born. So the kind of experience and the data you would have would be amazing to understand and hear, and how the programs evolved over this time period. Maybe. So that will be great if you can share some.
Yeah, sure. I think, as you mentioned, we've had the privilege of the 125 years, and pretty much Godrej was born alongside the Indian independence movement, right? So when we talk about philanthropy, in that time it was giving to the independence movement. I think the Godrej family was one of the largest donors. To, in your products, being able to see how can we have, say for example, the world's first vegetable oil soap instead of animal fat soap, right? So that was the first sense of sustainability, cruelty-free products. So I think what we call now today, which is the good and green function, that has always been in our DNA and always has been in our sensibilities. And I think over time there were many initiatives that were taken up across the 100 years, and then we come to sort of 2010-11, where we said, okay, we want to formalize this within a function. And so we had our goals around impact, and you spoke about some of the issues that we took up then. That was before the CSR rule. We then added sustainability to it. We have a goal of being net zero by 2035. So we're moving towards that. I think today our thinking has moved and is evolving to say, how do we not restrict ourselves to saying CSR or CSR funding? But can we look at which are the stakeholder groups that are important to us, right? So if we think of stakeholder groups, we'll sort of have a 4C framework, which we have started to look at, which says communities, right? Whether it's a larger Indian community or the communities around our own facilities. Second is channel partners, right? So MSMEs, farmers, that whole group. Then we have colleagues, all the way from everyone who sits in corporate to our factories to property sites, for example, our construction workers. And ultimately, but not least important, are consumers, right? So we say, okay, across these 4 stakeholder groups, if we look at it not as CSR, but as a group, whether the funding comes from CSR, from the Godrej Foundation, from the business itself, from procurement, from R&D, etc., the question is how can we, from a social impact perspective and from a sustainability perspective, impact all of these. And it might be different for different companies, because we are, we have a group of 6 companies. I think I'll just give one example of, and especially for this group, because we're among philanthropists, to say how we can partner more, right? If we look at Godrej Capital, which is our newest company, has the mandate to be lending to underserved populations as well. So we've already pushed the agenda of lending to women, lending to same-sex partners, lending, providing now non-collateral loans. I think as a business, we want to go down the pyramid, but that's too much risk, right? And so the question for us today is, can we partner with a philanthropy who's ready to be that risk partner for us to be able to explore a customer segment that we probably haven't, but if we are able to do that in a low risk or no risk manner, then perhaps commercial capital can come in there and the burden on philanthropic capital reduces, right? So I think those are some of the things that we are trying to do, where we sometimes, we say CSR, nothing to do with consumers. I think we have to get out of this mindset of funding of CSR, and really all of us here need to have confidence of the knowledge and networks that we have, I think, which are more important if we open up to the corporate world.
Thank you, Pakzan. It was amazing to hear some of the stories and how the definition of philanthropy has changed over the years, from funding freedom movement to now social causes. Also, what you mentioned around Godrej Capital wanting to go down to the bottom of the pyramid. There are a lot of innovative structures that are coming in the market, blended finance, blended. In fact, me and one of my colleagues met one of the companies today itself who was talking about this, and how some amount of risk capital can come in from philanthropy, and then the commercial players can contribute. So again, it talks about how we can co-create structures, both financially and otherwise, to serve the underprivileged sector, and that's, I think, the need of the hour. These bridges have to be stronger and more robust and more institutionalized going forward, I believe. Thank you for that. Next, I'll come to you, Aditi ma'am. RJ Corp has made significant strides in education and skill development through initiatives like Shiksha Kendra and the Pravas Skill Development Center, aiming to empower underprivileged communities. Education programs not only provide academic knowledge but also equip students with practical skills and values necessary for holistic development. We've also seen, especially in the education sector, that a lot of times the initiatives do not go beyond the basic education. While your programs, very carefully designed, cover the other aspects, the holistic aspects of child development as well, how important are they, and how do you manage that, and how the program was designed? If you can hear some background on that, that will be great.
Thank you. You've come to my favorite topic now. So in 2020, we rolled out the NEP, the National Education Policy, which clearly talks about the community getting into schools. It's not just the work of teachers and children and parents to be there, but the community comes in and the corporates are part of the community. The other thing is, let's not think about CSR only as money. It can also be work shadowing, it can be mentorship, it can be internships, it can be talks, it can be so many things, just somebody engaging. And in that sense, RJ Corp is very deeply embedded in all these programs, and we are embedded in the RJ Corp. So whatever they think of, the first thing they think of, will it help Shiksha Kendra? So I'll briefly talk about the model, very briefly, because if you carry this forward to your cities, to your communities, to your schools, I think we are on the way to making a difference. It doesn't cost much. It costs a little bit, but a regular school shuts at about 2:30 maximum. Now the building is lying waste from 2:30 p.m. till 7:30 the next day. We are using that space to educate children who cannot get a good education. So you're using a building. We're teaching sustainability through that. I don't want to keep buying new uniforms, it's expensive. We ask the morning shift children who are from privileged homes to give their uniforms after they've been washed clean, dry clean, to their younger brothers and sisters, so to say. The entire morning school is twinned with the afternoon shift school. So children stay back and teach them. They could teach them dance, music, art, mathematics. So we've had some very interesting events where senior children have tried to translate science and social science, which are slightly heavy for the children from somewhat marginalized homes, into Hindi as question and answers. So it's actually a hand-holding, and whatever value you can think of, we are trying to inculcate that in the children. They use the same equipment. There is nothing that this Shiksha Kendra cannot use the smart lab, or they cannot get into the utter tinkering lab, or they cannot use the computer lab. It is all open for them. So in that sense, it's a, well, not really a challenge, but we have to take care that things work. It's a machine, it can go bad if it's, But then the CSR bit of RJ Corp comes in. We have their experts coming in, ensuring that the machines are working well. We have children who are, growing up and wanting to become part of the computer IT world. They go into work shadowing in the RJ Corp. And it's a different world for them. Imagine a child who lives in a little shanty going into a very, very posh office, and we provide him with the proper clothes to go in over there. And since this has been happening since 2003, we have impact stories. We have children who become first-class officers with banks. They keep coming back to us, and I have not let them. Again, it's a question of who's doing it. We've not let them get away. They come back and talk about their success stories to inspire others from that community to also aspire, dream, and reach that goal. And while we are trying to reach that goal through good education, through skill building, through value education, through resilience building, I know that RJ Corp is by my side because, like I said, it's embedded. It is not a tick box exercise that one check has been given, now you manage in this 4 crores for the rest of the year. I keep shaking them up every 6 months, 3 months, whenever I need anything, and it's provided to me. That's the kind of hand-holding schools need. And for me, education is very important because that covers everything else. Your healthcare will improve, population studies will improve, obviously the environment will become better. I think we have to address that one thing and sorts out many things if you just look after education.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's amazing and inspiring to hear all these amazing stories and the kind of impact all of you are making collectively. Moving on to Miss Madhura for the last question of this panel. As a part of Bajaj Group, which has a long-standing legacy of over again a century in driving social impact, Bajaj Electrical has continued with the tradition through various CSR programs focused on skill development, education, and community empowerment. How does Bajaj Electrical ensures that these efforts are not only impactful but also aligned to the evolving needs of the communities that you serve? And this question is again directed to you because of, again, the kind of track record that you have, the kind of the amount of time that you have spent within the sector and making the social impact. There'll be a lot of learnings for all of us in this room that we can take away, and over to you.
So Bajaj Group, through its different foundations and charitable trusts, has been doing, I think, commendable work, much more than what was expected of the 2%, the outcomes and the CSR commitments that are required. But since the Act has come into being, each and every company has its own CSR department, as mandated, recruited its own staff, taken the own objectives that they can work on, largely. In fact, just last year, the group announced commonly through Bajaj and beyond to commit 5,000 crores. It was big news everywhere to look at the industry as a whole that can be upgraded. You know, when we talk about engineering skills, and I'm very glad Madam talked about the NEP and, you know, the kinds of skilling that will be required for the country to be future ready. Today, we are the 4th largest economy. We need to sustain that. At the same time, we know how much of a divide we have when we are sitting over here and looking at how that gap also needs to be bridged in. And employment is going to be a big concern eventually in how corporates function. The newer generations are going to come and not want to work. You know, when we are looking at all these problems post-COVID, do you have, you know, certain mechanisms in place? So how do you become future ready? How do you elevate what is already with you? What's your legacy? And how do you ensure that you maximize your efforts through the departments that have been created, the work that has been committed, and the funds that can be properly channelized. So we are looking at specifically where CSR is concerned, the commitments to be aligned with the industry requirements in terms of also ensuring that the employability, you know, the education, quality of education. You can have children coming out of schools, but if they're not skilled enough to be employable, and not just in one industry, but in any industry, they're not going to be job ready, you know, and the corporations are going to spend a couple of years and not going to, like, you know, hire them. So then that's again going to be a big problem. At the same time, since we are in Hurun, India, we also have philanthropy foundations that are committed to very traditional work that needs to be done. Like, you need to give money to charity. You need to have charitable hospitals coming up in the backward areas. You need to create or put up Akshay Patra kitchen, which is going to cater to like an entire block in a remote aspirational district to feed like, you know, the mass population who are basically undernourished. So how do I do this? Where do I do this? And how do I channelize my personal giving. And all of us here mostly are wealth creators, wealth givers, and some of us are like managers to how do we look at this can be managed in a more judicious manner. And I think that responsibility weighs very heavily even on the managers, that how, because it's not for your money to just give, how judiciously it is being given. But at the same time, the corporate CSR cannot be squeezed dry of doing everything or every aspiration that probably the group or the promoters may want. So it will have to channelize the foundations. Different foundations can be created to look at the different, and at the same time, you cannot shun a passion or a commitment that a philanthropist or a person who's a mover or a shaker over here. I may be passionate about arts and a dying art. I want to work on it. I may be passionate about child trafficking. I may be wanting to work and ensure that the numbers really come down. But does that fit in with my corporate agenda? It doesn't. So do I give that money, look at the foundations and the non-profit entities that are available over there? How do I build those bridges? At our end, we have also done something is we have kept some funds for new initiatives where we are open to even looking at smaller organizations, even if they make mistakes, even if they are like not able to. So we actually handhold them. How do you fill a form? How do you write, how do you approach corporates, for CSR funds? Because they're doing notable work, but they're just not polished enough to approach for. Otherwise, we were seeing that most of the funding was going for bigger and bigger of the foundations who were very polished, and they were working with these other organizations, and a whole chain is being created till the fund goes actually to the community. So you can coexist, when we're talking about corporations and partnerships, by working with the CBOs, at the same time working with dynamic social entrepreneurs who have come up with something so innovative. So give space for all of these people also through your funding if it aligns with your obviously objective.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure listening to all of you. Also, what I reserved as my closing remark or conclusion has been over discussed. Last panel agreed. I thought I'll leave it as a question, but I'm so happy that it's not a question anymore in this room, because people already agree on it, that co-creation, collaboration is required in this sector between corporates and the social sector and innovative entrepreneurs. So all those bridges have to be built. That is what I thought will be my closing remark, but I think the room is already agreed on it. So I would urge that use this platform to the fullest to take forward this idea. Some of the discussions I heard already started on the last panel. We at EdelGive would be happy to facilitate. That's part of what we do and why we exist. So we'll be more than happy to facilitate any such networking connects that probably you would require to implement your plans, programs. So we'll be super happy to do that. So thank you so much again for being here, and it was a pleasure for me to be the moderator for this eminent panel. Thank you.
Thank you.